Welcome, Illumineers! It is time to take a rest from your quest and check in at the Lore Keeper's Inn. I'm your host, Katie. Now, we've already talked to some competitors and a judge about the recent Disney Lorcana challenge in Fort Worth. But like I mentioned in that tournament talk episode, there were a lot of people that weekend just working hard to make the magic that was a tournament happen. So one of the most visible roles that I think most people had eyesights on, because they were visible all over the world, is the official casters of the tournament. So our guest today is actually our first repeat guest, which is very exciting because that means I didn't scare her the first time. So that's thrilling for me. But she's someone who brings a genuine source of joy to the Disney Lorcana community. And she's part of the elite team of Illumineers that bring the thrill of competitive play to viewers all over the world. She is a lovely and talented Rebekah.
Hey, so glad to be your first repeat guest.
It's thrilling for me because, you didn't say I'm good. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming back.
Yes. Yes. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, as far as when this records, because I think it's going to release, in a week or so. But just so people know the recording, we're hot off. We're just returning. We're
off the presses. Yes.
Yeah, we're still dusting off our spurs.
I am so fresh from returning because I was caught in the whole travel fiasco of the airlines and the technology crash that happened, and so my flight got delayed. I got home a whole day later. So
did you get to do any fun Texas Extra things? Did you just go to Whataburger several times?
No, I literally just got a hotel because my flight got canceled and booked for the following day. I just got the hotel that was on airport property and just camped out there.
And honestly, that's thrilling to just sometimes be I'm going to watch HGTV in this bleach smelling bed.
They had some good food at the hotel restaurant and just, hung out in the hotel room and, it decompressed from the weekend's activities because it was a lot. And I feel after these events, I know we're going to talk more about them, I feel my head and my heart, are, to be cheesy, are always so full because there's so much that goes on. And so it was kind of nice to have a little bit of extra decompression time before I had to get back home and jump into family life and work and all of that. So that's kind of nice.
I know, yeah. I think we were talking before we recorded that everybody has a life outside of Illumineering. And so, going back into that is... Yeah. I want to tell everybody about it, but I have a feeling my coworkers are not going to be impressed with my dragon fire. But maybe.
They might be. You never know.
So I know you previously on our show to talk about the Eras Tour. Critically acclaimed. Everybody loved it. And by everybody, I'm sure someone did. But today, we're talking about you. So that you're an expert on that. So you didn't have to do much preparing at all because that's you. So I wanted to kind of ask the question that I didn't ask last time is how did you get into Disney Lorcana? Because everybody has their own kind of Lorcana origin story. So what is yours?
Origin story. Yeah. So I've shared it on some other podcasts, but I have some small amount of experience playing Magic the Gathering when I was younger, in the 90s, in middle school and high school, very early when the game was brand new. My parents almost had their hands on Alpha Set, they had, I think, maybe some beta cards. But we just played casually at home. There were some friends of my parents that we would get together with. Every Sunday, we would go and drive 45 minutes to my parents' friend's house, and we would all play Magic, and we would have the table set up, and we'd have our different pairings and everything. And I thought it was so cool that I was getting to play this game with the grown-ups, you know? So it was really fun. So I have that as a history, and then, of course, started hearing whispers about this new card game, but it was Disney, and I'm okay, but Disney's always doing stuff, always. Is it going to be any good? And then there was just so much hype around it, and so I'm okay, I guess I'll check it out. And the more that I started looking into it, I was oh, this looks like it maybe is going to be good. I knew that Ravensburger is a really trusted game company. All of their board games and the puzzles that they do are such good quality that I was okay, this is a brand, a company that I feel I can trust to be putting out something into the world that is going to be good. So I decided to jump in and have been doing it ever since.
Yeah, it looks like I'm looking away, and I want to let you know because you mentioned that like Ravensburger, you're like, this is a real company. And it's funny because when I was a little girl, I had this game called Enchanted Forest from Ravensburger. And I mean, this is, early 90s. So this is a long time ago. And it was like this game where you would go through the forest and it was like the Black Forest and you'd get like little fairy tale items on trees. And you'd have to remember where it was. And so when I made the mental connection that they made that game, I'm going to have to post about it because
that's so cool.
I wonder if they still make it. Anyway, so long story short, that you triggered a memory that I was like, yeah, Ravensburger is their own right of a company.
Yes.
And then, so yeah, Disney, I'm like,
I mean, honestly, I think that was really, one of the things that hooked me. And I don't know if I've ever really mentioned that before when I've talked about my Lorcana origin story, because there's so many different companies out there. And obviously there's companies that are doing really good things or companies that I've never heard of. But I just knew a little bit about Ravensburger. And so there was that already like established trust there in the brand and what they were going to bring to the table. So, there you go.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting because everybody has like they're like I heard about it, but then I saw it was good, and so
right, yes,
I think that's always the fun part is.
And then I saw it was good, and then I got excited, and then I was like, I'm gonna make an account about it, on Instagram because I don't know, I have I'm like a serial starter of things. Like I always love starting things. I've done so many different projects and all different side things. Don't ask my husband how many he knows that I'm always just constantly starting things. And so he's like, oh, Rebekah's just I'm a hobby. Yes, I'm a hobbyist of hobbies. And so when I started my account, so knowing that about myself, I kind of gave myself this little goal that I was like, okay, what would happen if I just commit to starting this Instagram about this really fun new game that I found out about. And if I just make a post every single day for 1 month, for 30 days, if I can commit to just sticking with it for 30 days, what would happen? And now here I am.
Yeah. And I think we all should throw a party at the 1-year anniversary because that means that we've all made it past the point of hyperfixation to long-term interest. Congratulations.
Yes. Congratulations, which is coming up soon. I think I looked back and my very first post on Instagram was September 6th or 7th, somewhere around there. So we're approaching almost, a year.
Yeah. A year of being interested in a thing. And I'm like, that is truly monumental. I mean, only two things. Disney's one of them, which that helped. That helped
right.
weasel it in.
Yes.
As Disney's been a long-term interest.
Yes, especially as somebody who is a constantly like you said, I have a hobby of hobbies, and so that I've and I think there's just so much excitement around the game. There's always something new, which helps. I never feel like I've mastered anything. There's always something new to learn. There's always new cards coming out. There's always so much variety. So that helps with keep going with it.
It does. Yeah. And I think I've mentioned a few times that there's so many ways to enjoy it. I think if you went through this past weekend at Fort Worth, everybody had a very different weekend, but I mean, there's so many different stories of how you enjoyed the weekend.
Absolutely.
Now, I personally love your Instagram because I'm always like, how is she doing that? I always think of the song from Hamilton where it's she's nonstop because you do a lot of content and it's funny and it's good. And so I wonder kind of what is your creative process? Because I imagine you probably have to write them down, right? Because you can't just the minute you have an idea, go do it. Or are you someone where you get an idea and you're out the door, I have to get this out? What is that? Okay.
I don't write anything down. Oh my goodness. I wish I could, and I just cannot operate that way. I don't know what it is. And so I very much am just looking for inspiration from sometimes it's going through Instagram and finding the trending audio and being oh, what audio sound or song speaking to me today or inspires an idea. Or sometimes it's just what's going on in the community, in the world of Lorcana, cards or what's going on in the meta, and it's just kind of every day. I don't plan content out ahead of time. And I think if I forced myself to do that, I would actually stop. I would not do it if I tried to plan it out. And some people are like, oh, if you don't want to burn out, like plan your content ahead of time, like batch create content. And that's just not for me. It's not for everyone. It works for some people. But if I had to do that, I would just quit. And so it's just like every day I'm just like, and sometimes I'll like have a few ideas in my mind that I'm like, okay, over the next few days or whatever, I can like do this thing. But it's really just like, what do I think would be interesting, entertaining, informative, inspiring, and finding something that can like spark something in me, and then turning it into a reel or a post. And I heard that about content one time. Is really great advice, where really you're looking to do one of three things, which is either inspire, entertain, or inform your audience. And I think that that's been really helpful for me to kind of have those things. And then if you can do two or even all three in a single post, then you've got something. And especially with the stuff that's more on the funny side, honestly, I'm like, if it's something that makes me laugh, then it sounds silly, but I'm like, if I'm making myself laugh, then it's something that I want to share, and then hopefully somebody else will laugh too. And so it's not anything, groundbreaking in my creative process, but just like, what is entertaining to me, and I'm going to make that and share it with other people. Yeah, I don't write it down. I just like have ideas in my head, and then I make it.
That is pretty crazy. I will write down some things. I have a notebook in front of me where I'll be like, I'll try to write things down. The worst thing is when I have two good ideas in a day, and I'm like, well, I can't make two posts because the algorithm's going to get mad at me and be like, pick a lane. So then I'm like, what do I do? Do I settle this good idea? My brain will forget. I could write it down, but who knows if that's going to happen. So that is the one downside, is having two good ideas in one day.
And you just share it for the next day, or save it for the next day. The terror. The other weird thing is like, you have to think, you also have to think about the algorithm, your friend who you don't know very well.
No, and it's mysterious.
Keeps a lot of secrets from you, but you want to be friends with the algorithm, so you do what you can. And there's two things that I always want to be doing. One is continually connecting with my current followers in the community, but then also doing things that will reach new people, my people who are not my friends yet. And those are actually two different kinds of content that you make. Sometimes it's both, but sometimes the reels that like reach really widely to non-followers is very different content than things that will be good, that are interesting for the people that are already here, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, because then you start to have kind of like inside jokes with your followers versus things that are just generically entertaining.
Or like, this is so silly, but like I do a lot of funny things and whatever, but I also want to have some informative content for people who are newer to the game, new players, younger players, less experienced. And those reels are not reaching a wide audience, So like those are for the people who are already here, that are like learning how to play the game and want to get better, And I'm not worried about, that reel didn't have like really high views on it. It's like, well, that's okay, because that's not who it was for,
Yeah, I think, I mean, that would be my advice for anyone creating content is you're gonna cast some lines and you're gonna go, I liked it. I ran and my number one audience is me when I run to the other room to my husband and be like, is this funny? And he's like, I think so. And I'm like, all right, I'm posting it. So
I'm posting it. That's great.
He's a test audience.
Yes. It's good when you have a test audience.
Yeah. Now you have a test audience of home professionally. So you have a junior Illuminator in your house.
I do.
You mentioned that you played Magic with your family. Is there is it spreading throughout the house, or is it localized just between you and your son?
So my son, Caleb, he's 14, and he's been playing with me since I started playing in the beginning. I had taught him how to play Magic when he was like 7 or 8 years old. So he kind of had a little bit of experience playing a trading card game, but he is like in it now. He's like getting coaching with Zach Bivens. He just went to a set championship and got top 4 and won his Ursula Enchanted
so
promo, which was so exciting. And he's just practicing, working on deck building, getting better at strategy. And it's really cool to see. My daughter, who's a little younger, she's not as interested. I've built some fun decks for her, like Puppy's deck, Broom's deck. She does enjoy Lumineer's Quest, where we can all play together. But not, it's like every once in a while she wants to play, but she's not like in it like Caleb is. And then my husband was not interested at all. But then he got a little bit interested. And we were playing a Lumineer's Quest, and he was like, oh, asking questions. And then the next day he was like, can you help me build a DuckTales deck? So
thrilling when that happened.
Yes.
I walked past my husband. I walked past his computer and I saw him looking at a Lorcana card. I'm like, are you? What are you looking at over there? Are you looking at Lorcana? You want to talk about it? So yeah, that is thrilling when they're like, yeah. It's fun as a family. I think I know my sister plays, my niece plays, my dad plays. So it is.
That's so fun.
It's a fun thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's fun to have.
My mom also plays. So
that's wonderful.
So even though my husband and my daughter don't play often, so every week, my mom doesn't make it every week, but my son and I go to League every week together. And I would say like 2 or 3 times out of a month, my mom is also there. So we have 3 generations of Lorcana going to our weekly League, which is really cool.
I love it so much. And I think, it's something where my dad was like, well, what if I'm the oldest one? I'm like, guess what? You won't be. There's lots of people of all. It is a wonderful place to go. And guess what? Everyone there wants to play Lorcana, which is the best news because you don't have to worry about people not wanting to hang out with you because they're all there for that thing.
For that thing. Yes.
Now, I will say that I do think about the fact that, TCGs aren't free. So, and it takes time. So, like, would you have any advice for parents where, like, your kid is into a TCG of, like, how to foster that, like, in a way where, we all know that TCGs can be something where you're like, I want to be the best, and that can, like, be consuming. Yeah. So, like, fostering expectations, helping them kind of see the forest for the trees on it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's something that I've struggled with Caleb a little bit, because he, I think that TCGs presents kids with a lot of learning opportunities, right? Learning not just the game and how to play, but like also learning, if I want to get good at something, I need to practice. I need to listen to people who are better than me, who've been doing this longer than I have. I need to read or watch content that will help me improve my skills. And so learning how to, apply themselves to something, like if Caleb really wants to get better, what are the things that he needs to do? And in fact, leading up to this last set championship where he did make it, to top 4, he was doing all those things. He was practicing a lot more often and listening to people with more experience, and learning from other skilled players. So then he saw the payoff of that, and I mean, and you can practice and do all those things and not make top 4 at an event too. But so it was really neat. So I think for kids, helping them know, like tempering expectations is definitely good. Even for adults, we need that.
Yeah. Trust me. I struggle with that.
Right. But for kids, I think that's just a great learning opportunity. And then, the financial aspect is definitely something, especially when kids see like, these different decks with these cool cards, and some of them are very expensive. And so then it's like, okay, well, you can save up your allowance, to buy those cards, or we can look at some other cards that we have that we can maybe trade with someone. So that way it's not cash out of your pocket, but let's try to find somebody who's willing to trade, this for, card that we're not using is same value, but we're not using it, and find to get a card that you will use. Or, doing extra work over at your grandparents' house to earn money that you can use, and those kind of things. And then also to say, you know what, and I had to do this with Caleb, sometimes you're just not going to have the cards that you want in your deck, and you need to find something else. And that's just going to be how it's going to be. And so like he really wanted 4 Robin Hoods, and I'm like, well, that's really just not going to happen. So you're going to need to find something else to put in your deck that will hopefully help you accomplish, something similar. Maybe it won't be as good, but you need to find something else. The other thing I think that can be great is if you have a local league where you can build relationships with other players, is that oftentimes players are willing to let you borrow cards, to use in your deck. And we've done that a lot with league players at the store that we go to, which is really nice. Like, oh yeah, we'll let you borrow a couple Diablos for league tonight or whatever it is. And so that's been really cool as well. So I think, building community is a big aspect of a trading card game, and which is also great for kids too. Building community. Yeah. I want to see more kids. We have 3 who come every week pretty much at our league.
Yeah.
3 kids.
Yeah, and they'll kick my butt, and it makes me feel bad. But yeah, they're good. There's like some kids that, I'm like, man. But I will say, so my husband played Magic the Gathering through middle school, through high school, and he attributes his vocabulary to playing Magic the Gathering because these games make you have to have very good reading comprehension skills.
Yes. I mean, reading for younger kids, my son's 14, but like for younger kids, you're reading, math, is
there's lots of
really good for learning. Well, yeah, and just problem solving, thinking through, what are the things that I need to do in this situation. Yeah, there's so much good stuff that kids can learn from playing a game like Lorcana. And I think the other thing that's different, I mean, this probably could be true for Pokemon as well, I guess. Not in our house, but because we don't watch
this
Pokemon.
House. This isn't a Pokemon house.
I don't mean it that way, Katie. But like, my kids are really familiar with all the Disney characters, right? Because we watch all the movies, and so for kids that are familiar with these characters, that helps even for, I find that with adults too. Like, we remember the characters more and what they do, and it's easy to remember, like, oh yeah, Ariel, she's a spectacular singer, and so she can sing these songs. That makes sense. Whereas another card game, maybe there's not any of that connection already. So I think that's nice for kids and then it's just more fun too, because they're like, oh, look, I get to play Simba,
And it's the intergenerational thing too, because they're like, I like Simba. I'm like, guess what? I like Simba too. I've been liking Simba for decades now. Or I think it just
so
had
many decades.
30th anniversary, and I'm like, uh-oh.
I think it was 35th anniversary. Yeah, that made me feel old.
Well, it's a gift to be old, I guess.
Yes.
So there were some younger folks at the tournament, and I think it's very encouraging because it's a great skill to have. And speaking of tournaments, you have been a part of all 3 stateside Disney Lorcana Challenge events, but in a capacity that's not how most people have enjoyed it. You have been a part of the casting team for all 3. So I imagine the first time, to be the first, there's been people who've first I was like, casting like fishing? No, broadcasting, but it's just without the broad, it's casting. Yes. I imagine the first time was probably like, all right, but now you've got number 3 under your belt. So have you felt like there's been kind of like an internal growth between the first time and now, where now it's kind of like getting back in the saddle?
Yeah, definitely. I think the very first time because I had not done anything like this before, doing commentary or broadcasting. Some of the other people who are part of the team have done commentary like this in other capacities, but it was my first time. And so there was a lot that I didn't know what to expect about the experience. But the 2 things that I had going into the first one was, I do have a really good knowledge of the game, and I'm just really excited about the game to talk about it, And so I went into it so nervous, but I had to just keep telling myself, like, it's okay. You know the game and you're excited about it. So don't worry, it's going to be okay. But I was a bundle of nerves, and I was just, I wanted it to go well. I wanted to do well for the community and all that. And I think it did go really well the first time. And so then going into Chicago the next time around, I didn't have that. I still was nervous. It's kind of like I have a background in theater and stuff. And it's like when you're about to go on stage for a performance, like you're still nervous. Like you want to do well and all of that. But it was definitely a more relaxed, like internal, like mental, emotional state going into the next one. And I was really able to just have more fun, be a little bit more relaxed, and settle into the rhythm of the day, the 2 days, the weekend, and everything. And then again, coming into Fort Worth, I felt like so much more in the groove of like, okay, now I know what to expect. And, Chicago, Atlanta, I was at home remote. And so Chicago, even though it was my second time commentating, it was my first time in person. So now Fort Worth, it was being the third time. It's my second time in person. Again, still nervous.
Yeah.
But able to just focus on having fun and bringing the excitement and vibes from the event, and you were there, and there's so much going on there, and bringing the experience going on in that room into the casting booth, talking about the games to help people who are watching from home get a little taste of what the experience is like. So it's just been so great for myself seeing some of that growth over the 3 events and settling more into how commentary goes, working, with some of the other folks on the team now for a few times and building those relationships. Of course, that helps as well. But it's been really great being able to be a part of these 3 events and kind of get to settle in and have more fun as the time goes on. Not that I didn't have the fun the first time.
Well, yeah, but I mean, anyone that said anything for the first time, broadcasting to, whenever I log into Twitch, I mean, a minimum of like 5,000 people are watching, and like it can be more, and you're like, wow, that's a lot. So I think, and I assumed that you guys all went to like some kind of like camp where they're like, you're going to go to camp for a week and learn it. And you're like, no, we just did it. And I was like, well, good job, because I was very impressed.
Yeah.
But one thing, you had a pretty unique perspective because you get to watch kind of the tournaments evolve in some ways. Because I mean, there's some people that have been to all 3. Some people haven't. There's been, Atlanta, you're not really watching the whole thing. But, Chicago versus Fort Worth, you had a bird's eye, or as I put, a Diablo's eye view. Is there any kind of things that like has been your favorite thing about seeing how the tournaments have been evolving as they go on?
I think one of the really cool things to see was, one thing, Chicago versus Fort Worth, first of all, it was double in size in Fort Worth. So that in and of itself was like, whoa, there's a lot of people in this room. This is fantastic. It's so cool. I mean, Lorcana is just and these events, they sell out so fast. Like Vegas just went on sale and the tickets were out in like less than 5 minutes. Anyway, so it's just really cool to see so many players and people in this room connecting over this game. So that was really neat. Also, there was a lot more side events going on in Fort Worth than there were in Chicago. They added the Pack Rush going on as a side event. They had they had a whole nother day. They did side events all day on Friday. They had some bigger constructed tournaments going on as side events outside of the main challenge event. And I thought it was just really well organized. Of course, every event is going to be different because based on venue, and setup and everything like that. But I thought it was really well run. Everything that I saw, the event organizer does a wonderful job. And each time, being there in person, Chicago and just hearing how Atlanta went, it's like each time they're making like incremental improvements from show to show. And then even in the broadcast, you know, on our team's side of things, we've seen improvements there as well, with them improving the quality of the stream, you know, and just making sure that the experience for people watching the stream is also having some improvement there, you know, because you can only have 2,000 or so people in the room, but how many more people are experiencing the event through the broadcast? And so they're also trying to improve the stream. And we've seen some changes, I think, that from Atlanta to Chicago to Fort Worth have made the broadcast better and better each time. And the team is working to, you know, it's not there yet. There's more improvements that they want to do. And so I think we're going to continue to see improvements happen from event to event.
That has been very exciting. It feels like, you know, sometimes one thing, it's, you know, people like to say how they feel on the internet, but sometimes...
Really?
Yeah, right? It's crazy. But Ravensburger listens, and that's very exciting that, you know, people will be like, you know, I didn't like this line. And then the next time they're like, oh, well, now we have it separate over here. And we have, we encourage you to register early. And you're like, wow. So I think that's the good news.
I think that Ravensburger does a great job of listening to feedback from the community, and not just Ravensburger, but also the other teams involved in running the event and everything. I also think that there are things that they want to do or are planning to do that they just, you know, it's so early in the life of the game and things take time. And I'm sure that they have so many not tricks, but wonderful gifts up their sleeve.
I
mean,
for
there's
the
so many
community.
Things. Yeah. So we just have to be
patient. Patient, not me. But no, I agree. Because I mean, I heard feedback from Atlanta. I wasn't there, and people were like, "Oh, you know, there wasn't vendors in this one. They had 6 vendors, and I was happy. I spent money. I'm willing.
There you go.
As you can see, I am willing to spend money on many Disney items if you give me a chance." Now, a lot of people are fighting for the great Golden Mickey, but you were fighting for a much more prestigious award, and you won it. Yes. You won the winner of the most puns used during the cast. Now, puns are a controversial humor choice. However, whimsy and laughter I don't think is controversial. Why do you think it's important to inject levity in these kind of events?
Yeah, I mean, as we talked about earlier, this is a Disney game. And what is Disney more known for than, you know, fantasy and whimsy and laughter and magic and all of that? Like that's why people go to the parks, right? You want to walk down Main Street and have an experience or meet a character. You want to go walk through Fantasyland and you know, run into Tinkerbell or whatever. And so that's Disney. Even the movies, we want to sit in a theater and we want to watch a magical story. And so I think that there's something to be said for bringing some of that into the casting booth, that yes, this is a game and there's skill and strategy and all of that. And also, it's a Disney card game, and we want to bring that magic to the community. And you see it there in person. You know, people walking around with Mickey ears and dressed up in cosplay of their favorite characters or wearing Spirit jerseys. I know you guys actually talked about that a little bit with your the other chat with the other folks.
Yeah, that's how you can see, like, oh, you can tell this is a Disney fan.
This is a Disney fan with their lounge flyaway backpack and everything. And there's just something about that Disney magic that is, I think, just inherently part of this game that we can't forget or let go by the wayside, you know. And so bringing some Disney puns into the booth or talking about the cards and the movies that they're from and everything, like we got to. You know, some people are here because they're Disney fans, right?
Yeah. And if you can't giggle at the mental image of like Maui rushing into a little squirrel, then what are we doing here? That's funny.
It
Or
is
like, yeah,
funny.
Maui taking out little Lilo. I'm like, that is canonically a funny thing to think about.
Yes.
So-
One of my favorite things that comes to mind right now is there was a game that I was casting, and I believe it was a Steel Song player, and it might have even been in the finals. I can't remember. And there was the queen, commanding presence. I go like this because that's what her dress is doing.
Yeah.
The queen.
Flourishing.
And yes. And then on the other side of the board was the queen's castle. And, queen, if she gives somebody else strength, she could have given somebody else enough strength to run into the castle and take it out. But that didn't happen because Maui came down and took out the queen, and then he moved Maui into Queen's castle. And I was just cracking up about
It's funny. Yeah.
Maui coming in and being like, sorry, queen, I'm taking up residence here in your castle.
Yeah. I'll never forget, I was playing the first time we got like our little starter deck. And I was playing against my husband, and he stopped, and he put down his cards, and I'm like, "What are you playing?" And I'm like, is this a song from Beauty and the Beast? And he was playing the mob song, and he played Grab Your Swords for the first time anyone had played that against me. And it's like, I think those things are fun. I think it's fun. It's
fun. I made a deck one time where the new singer 7 Ariel in Amber, I made an Amber Ruby deck. Specifically, one of my goals was to get Ariel to sing Be Prepared, because I just think that's hilarious. And I did it. I was so excited.
I did try to implement a rule that if you sing a song, you have to sing it. Like if a character sings it, you have to sing the song in the voice of the character. But that's tough. You got to get a really socially
the voice of the character.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was a tough sell. It was just me doing it. So, what can you do? But I think that's an important part because that is what, a lot of us showed up for the Disney, and I think some of us are staying for it too. Now, I will say that you said a quote, and it stuck out to me, and I think you even made a reel about it, about how I think we forget sometimes how impactful representation is in any space. And you can't underestimate the power of representation, especially in a space like TCGs that are so male-dominated. I think it can't be underestimated the power of women and young girls who are playing this game to see a woman in that space, and the value cannot be measured. That stuck out to me because yesterday I was talking to some fellow players, and they said, I think felt like there was more women at Fort Worth. And I was like, well, I wonder if it is because of that. If you see one person in the room that looks like you, you're like, well, maybe I can be in that room. Have you seen, has there been any kind of things that have been inspiring for you, even online and in person, that you're like, I really feel like people, young, old, women, marginalized gender, that you're like, wow, look, like they're showing up and they feel like they belong.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are seeing more women coming into Disney Lorcana. I think we could always be more welcoming, but I think that the community is pretty welcoming. And I've been lucky that I have a league where there are a bunch of women playing. I mean, not a bunch, but there's let's see here. I should have counted how many there are, but let's say maybe 20% of, so out of 30, how many would that be?
20%
I should have done the math.
No. 6? Nope, that can't be right. That's 30. Well, we're not math people.
We are not math people. Sorry. So so like a handful of women though that play every week, and there's 2 younger girls that come every week, and so they see these adult women who are playing, and then even for other adult women to walk into a local game store and see there's other females here playing this game. And then for people to come to these big events and take pictures and selfies and share about their experience on their personal, social media accounts, or sharing it with their friends at League who maybe didn't go because they didn't feel comfortable. And I think the more that people go and the more people share about it and the more that people do see there are women here and kids here and families here, Disney fans here, people who are new to trading card games that are going to these events, then people do, like you said, go, oh, there's a place for me there. There's other people like me. It's that representation piece, and that you have, I'm part of it being on the casting team, but it's so much more than that you see women represented. You know, there's female judges, you know, there's people on staff at Ravensburger that are women. And so I think seeing all these people involved in the event in all different capacities or attending, the more that we see of that, the more people will feel this is a space that I can come into. So, and I mean, even for me, like at the beginning of my Lorcana journey, seeing that there were already other women in this space was really encouraging to me to keep going with my content, and even, you know, being encouraged by other content creators to say like, yeah, it's important for us to have women voices here so that other women know this is an okay place to be.
Yeah.
And so I think that I mean, okay, Katie, I should have brought it up on my phone. I got a message literally just this morning, and I read it and I like almost cried. I got really teary-eyed. Somebody on Instagram sent me a message and said, you know, I just want to thank you so much for your account. It is, you know, I'm also a mom who plays Lorcana, and it's really, really, you know, neat to see somebody like you who plays this game, who has their kids playing, you're helping your son to grow in the game, seeing you up there casting and being involved in events is really inspiring. And I just love what you do. And thank you so much for being a part of this community, because it makes me feel like, you know, I belong in this community. I was like, oh, like that's
Yeah. And knowing
amazing.
That it's one person, that's amazing.
Right. And that's, you know, there's a bunch of people out there like that, you know? So, and I think that that's why, that's why it's so important to have, you know, all kinds of people represented, and not just like gender or people of color, but also different types of players, you know, the more competitive, the more casual, you know, whatever, like we've talked about, there's all different ways to play this game. And so, yeah, having representation in all different ways, I think is so important. And then I think it's really important also for people who are in the space to be empathetic to the experience of other people and what other types of players might need, you know, like seeing, you know, R&B, you know, who's one of the members of Labyrinth team, like say like, yeah, we need a space for casual players. And then for casual players to say, we need a space for competitive players. And at the event, they had a whole ADA space. So if you had kind of special needs that needed to be accommodated in any kind of way, that you could still come to the event and have a space that would work for whatever your needs are. Like I loved that so much, and I was so glad to see that. So it's just like small things like that, where if we can all be watching out for the other parts of the community together, then it'll continue to grow and be a healthy, welcoming space.
Definitely. I think I've said a few times that I don't want to gatekeep. I want to see how big we can make the gate. Be like, see if we can get through. Because I think sometimes people are like, well, who won the tournament? And I mean, technically, only 8 people were in the top 8. But a lot of people won a really great weekend. A lot of people won. Like, I mean, I saw a Cinderella Stout-Hearted cosplayer that I was like, you won. I don't know what you won, but you won. So I think just saying that there's so many valid ways to experience it. You don't have to win to have had a good time. I know people want to win, and I won't take that from them. But there are so many different ways to have a great day doing whatever it is you want to do with Lorcana.
That's something even that I've talked about with my son, you know, is saying different people have fun in different ways with this game, and there's no one right way, you know, and knowing how you enjoy the game is important, but then understanding that other people might enjoy the game differently, and that's okay is important.
Yeah, and just kind of being like, I think one time I told someone, I'm like, you don't have to understand everything. Because sometimes people be like, I don't understand people who do this. But you don't have to if that's what they want to do. People who want Enchanteds, that is beautiful. If they want to collect every expensive piece of cardboard, more power to them.
More power. If they want to bling out their deck and they want to play with their Enchanteds, you know? do that.
I know. Now, if you do it without a sleeve, now you're going too far. Whenever I see people, when I sit down with an opponent and they don't have a playmat and they don't have sleeves, I'm like, this person's a crazy person. I'm like, I was like, is this an intimidation strategy? You're doing this? So that's the only person that I will be like, no. An anecdote I will say is we had one person come to our league and she said, oh yeah, I just got into it. I bought a few booster boxes. These are my trades. I'm going to go buy some sleeves. And she left her trades on the table and on top was an enchanted Hades, just naked. Just this naked enchanted
Hades.
And she came back and she's like, did you guys sleeve my card? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, we did.
She was like, it's the opposite of vandalism. We're like, we just got scared. You were just sitting there. She's like, you put on a top loader and a sleeve? We're like, well, you need both. And she's
need
okay.
both. Okay.
So that's the only kind of gatekeeping is just, well, you gotta protect it. Jeez.
Protect the enchanteds.
And the one thing I want to say is to touch on kind of, I've enjoyed watching your casting. Is there anything that's been like your favorite part of having that opportunity and just to be up there and talking?
I mean, oh gosh. My mom actually asked me after the first time, what I liked most about it. And I was like, I just got to like hang out and talk about Lorcana all day. And watch people play and, talk about the cards, talk about the strategy, talk about, not that I'm there for like the deep analysis or whatever, but I can talk about the gameplay and everything and just being able to hang out with the community members at the event in person, of course, like in between rounds is also like really special. Meeting people who I've met online, but now we get like it was like,
I know, that was so
exciting to meet you in person. And so that I think is the other thing that I really love about being able to go to these events. But yeah, there's something about being able to bring the excitement of that experience to the viewers.
Yes.
I tend to be really bubbly or, overly positive. But I think that it's just because I do get so excited about this game and the community and what's going on and being able to share that with other people through the commentary and casting and everything is just, that's what I love most about it, is being able to share this event that people might not be able to go to in person for whatever reason and bring some of that Disney magic, home to the viewers.
Yeah. No, and I, as somebody who watched the first two events at home, it's so fun. I think some people call it, I don't know, this is a podcast, I'm allowed to say it, like it's a Super Bowl where you're like, it's like a big event and you get to be there. And
yes. I had a friend I had a friend who watched the first one, maybe Atlanta, and she doesn't play the game at all. Like she's not a player, like a Lorcana person, but because I was doing it, she saw that I was doing this. And so she watched for a little bit and she was like, it was like watching the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You're like, oh yes, very interesting. The move they did there. And,
yes.
And I think, you touched on, obviously the online part is important, but man, it was cool seeing people in person. I think it was just the world can feel kind of small and isolating sometimes because, as you get older, the less fun, I don't want to say, as you get older, you do less fun things. But you kind of stay in your bubble more and more. You don't you don't get chances to have huge communities. And so to have like a national community and then get to see those people, that's something that's so special. And the fact that everybody wants to say hello, that was so cool to just people be like, are you so-and-so? And be like, yeah. And my goodness, how fun is that?
Did people come up to you at all? Did anybody recognize you?
Oh my gosh.
I love it.
And as a person,
Yay!
so I've moved around a lot. So I exist in a space where I just assume no one ever knows who I am because I work remotely. We've moved. I don't have any family in town. So no one ever is saying, Katie. And so to be in a place that are you Lord Keepers in and be like, yeah. And just aggressively handing them a sticker it's truly exciting. Because I want to give everyone a sticker, and the fact that I can't do that in my day-to-day life is truly disappointing. But yeah.
Just take them to the grocery store. Just start handing them out.
Yeah, I know. I was going to do that TSA. I'd be like, by the way, Lord
There you
Keepers
go.
In, YouTube, find my favorite podcasting platform. But yeah, so yeah, just that energy of just like, even if it's just one person, that would be enough to be like, I am perceived, and I'm perceived in the way I want, where people feel better that I'm around, and that's such a good feeling.
And a few people say hi. There's some people that would just like walk by and just like give me a high five, like, Rebekah, high five. I'm like, do I know?
Oh, I like that.
I don't. High five. Cool.
I know. I do feel bad. I was like, I wonder how many people were like, I'm going to say hello. And they're like, that was an interaction that was weird. Because there was a few times where like my brain's somewhere else. And I was like, hey, and we talked. I'm this person. And I'm like, mm-hmm. So
Also,
apologies, everyone.
Thank you. Speaking of awkward interactions, asking people to dance for my video.
Yeah. I agree. I was so afraid of it that I told you. I was like, I want to dance now. I was like,
It was great. You're like, let's just get it over with.
Yeah, I need
It was
to dance.
perfect though.
Okay, good. Because
Yeah, no, it was great. And it was so much fun. But yeah, going up to people and being like, excuse me, would you like to do a little dance move for an Instagram video?
that was the cutest video. It was so adorable because I'm like, oh, I saw those people. I did watch and I was like, because you gave me, do you want easy, medium, or hard? And I said medium. So the whole time I was like, which one's hard? And I saw it and I was like, well, that was hard. Okay, that guy.
Hard. That guy, he was like, I asked him, I was like, easy, medium, or hard? And he's like, oh, hard. He's like, I'm a dancer. I was like, fabulous. Here you go.
So when I saw that, I was like, that one was hard because there was a few people just going like this. I was like, well, God, you should have picked that. You made me do a jazz turn.
When I was putting that together, though, I will say, being like, because we've talked so much about being there in person with the community and everything. And so when I was putting the whole video together with everybody, I was like making me almost teary-eyed because I was like, this community is so awesome. Yeah, it was a little awkward going up to people to say, can you do this dance move? Or can you put your hand up like this, like Moana does? And that people were like, sure, yeah, I will do that. Like, that's awesome. And just like this little teeny tiny glimpse, of this amazing community that we have in 60 seconds or 90 seconds, however long that was. And I was like, this is so wonderful. Like, this is like not even the tip of that. This is like the tip of the iceberg of how awesome the Lorcana community is. And I just loved it so much that people were willing to participate in this funny little idea that I had, and it turned out even better than I expected. So yeah, Lorcana community is pretty awesome.
I will say, yes, I agree. And my last question for you is about the future. So I know that we talked about a few things that like, ooh, we know we're at the beginning. This is the beginning. We're still in the first year. We haven't even passed that. And they've hinted at like fan events. So they've talked about, oh, we're going to get some soft stuff. And by soft, I mean like cute stuff. I don't know, like stuff where we're like, there, maybe things where, more like convention style things, like things that sound like more like D23 adjacent. So are there any things that you're like really hoping to see over the next year where, I mean, obviously everyone, not everyone, a couple followers on Twitter, I saw that there was a signing opportunity. I got very sad that it was not a singing opportunity. Because I was like, a singing opportunity? No. Signing opportunity. No. Still exciting. So are there any things you're hoping to see like a singing opportunity?
I mean, I think a singing opportunity would be pretty amazing. Can we have some Disney Lorcana karaoke at an event? Yes, please. Yes, exactly. I don't know how logistically you would do something like that, but I think that would be amazing. That would be fun. I think doing cosplay contests would be amazing. Yes. I do want to see signings, like more artist signings at official events would be awesome to meet the artists. I also think D23 style, having more panels, with the artists or art directors, with game developers, and just talking about how, or there's a whole team that does the story and writing the flavor text on cards.
Yes.
Let's get some of those people up there for a panel, to talk about how they're developing the story and the lore of Lorcana. That kind of stuff I would love to see. I also do want to see like merch. Can we get some merch, please? Like
I know.
I know there's the shirts and hats that you could get at the prize wall at the events, but I mean, I'm sure
There's only so many tickets and only so many hours.
I know. And I'm sure it has to do with like licensing stuff and whatever, but hopefully they'll get that sorted out because I mean, those will sell like hotcakes once they become available. I want the shirts and the sweatshirts and the hats and all the things and the pins. Yeah, more pins, more things. So I am optimistic about future of fan events. And I was talking to someone and they were like, well, would that be like a separate fan event from like the Disney Lorcana Challenge? And I was like, it could be, but I mean, I think having it be like a big thing where you have your big event going on, you have your side events, and then you also have like some of these more like convention style activities going on, and having it be like a big thing, like where the community is really all coming together in an ideal world is how I imagine if I was the one, helping them plan things. So I hope that we'll see some really cool stuff in the future. But I know that they, like I said earlier, there's so much I'm sure that Ravensburger has planned that they're working on. Things like that take time, and I'm very excited for the future of the game. I think there's a lot in store. I'm not worried that this game is going anywhere for a very long time.
Yeah, I always wonder, like, could they have ever imagined how fast the fire took hold as far as, like, the fandom? Because, I mean, it was immediate. It was within the first day, ever sold out everywhere.
Yeah.
From that moment forward, it was like, well, I guess
and Katie, they have not even done, like, hardly any marketing at all.
No,
No internet like ads or commercials that you see like before a YouTube video plays. You don't have like a Lorcana video, like there's not really been any like aggressive kind of marketing happening. And so once that gets going, I mean, gosh, this game has nowhere to go but up.
I do remember around like November, so this is like, very beginning, first chapter times, I saw like a Christmas gift. Get your kid a trove from chapter 1. I was like, okay, maybe we don't tell our parents to get an item that no person can get a hold of. It was just funny because you could tell like they're like, oh, this is an item, and someone working at Target or whatever it was like, yeah, people, and I'm like, I don't think you're gonna get that.
You're not gonna
As a person who learned the name of the man who stocks the Target cards, I will say that, that was not a Christmas gift that I think anybody should have been seeking. But now it's easier to get. Those were the hard times.
The hard times. I know. One of these days we're all going to look back and just, oh, man. Like, I remember just the other day I was talking with somebody about Lilo, and I was like, yeah, I remember back when everybody was playing Lilo and she was like a $20 card.
I know. I do love that every once in a while there's a card where it's like, buy. And I'm like, that's my favorite. The stock market side, that's a whole side we don't even talk about. But there's people who literally only talk about the stock market side of things. They're like, all right, we're speculating. We're going to buy. We're going to dump. It's a bear market. And I'm like, okay.
Wow. It's a thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited. I think... there's so many things. I think we could have a whole podcast where we just say, I'd like this. So, but yeah.
All the things. And we just want all the things. Is that too much to ask for?
But who cares? It's no big deal. I want more, in the words of a mermaid. We all know.
Yes, absolutely.
Ariel. Just in case somebody's like,
just in case somebody didn't know.
There's still, like I said, there's some people who are still, TCG first, Disney second, and I'll help them. I'm there. I'll be like, I'll be your shaman through this Disney journey. So, Rebekah, I can't thank you enough for spending another evening chatting with me about, this wonderful hobby that we love, and sharing your insights, because you have very unique insights, and I love to hear them. And I really, truly mean it when I say that you are a bright light in our little corner of the TCG world. And so I appreciate the work that you do, because, things, it's not always the right sunshine, and you add that sunshine, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I love, that's my favorite part about having people on my show, is I'm like, I'm just going to say nice things to you and you have to sit and listen. So that's secretly why I started the show. But before we say goodbye, where can people find and follow the things that you are doing with Lorcana?
Yes. So you can find me on Twitter at The Illuminary, but mostly I am on Instagram at lorcana.illuminary, and that's where you can find me having fun. So yeah, if you don't follow me, join me there.
It is fun. Yeah.
It is fun.
I joke that I'm like always a little intimidating. So I'm like, how did she come up with another one? But she doesn't. So yeah, thank you again. I 100%. I appreciate every time I get to talk to you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, Katie. I love your show that you do. You bring so much joy. So keep
Well, that's
doing
good.
it.
We're like reflecting joy violently back at each other. Well, thank you to our listeners for joining me for another episode of The Lore Keepers Inn. If there's anything you ever want to hear me talk about, you can always feel free to email me at contact@thelorekeepersin.com or reach me at Twitter or Instagram at the socials linked in the description. As always, thank you for hanging out with me today. I'm always happy to have you stop by the inn wherever your quest may take you. And if you don't know where to find us, just take the second start or the right exit and head straight on till morning.